So we just finished this past weekend the British Open, the Open Championship. It was held this year in Northern Ireland, and you probably saw the headlines. Scottie Scheffler won. It was, I believe, his first Open Championship. So his first win of this major. He now has three of the four majors to get to the career Grand Slam, and he's been the number one golfer for a while now, maybe 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, I want to say. And it was kind of a pretty dominant performance, and we'll get into that. But before we do, I just wanted to ask, like, Henry, what is your experience with golf generally, with watching golf, with watching the British Open? Just kind of where were you coming at this weekend? What was your lens there?
So I've been playing golf for pretty much my whole life. Started playing competitively when I was probably 8 or 9 years old was my first tournament, and still do today. I played club golf in college at Ohio State. So I like to think when I'm watching golf live, I kind of have a good idea of what the golfers themselves are thinking, standing over shots and prepping for shots and stuff like that. And now watching golf as someone who still is trying to play competitively and grow their game, it's cool to watch pros to see how they handle tough situations because mentally the best mental games on the planet are the guys that are on tour. They're dealing with the hardest conditions. They're dealing with the highest pressure situations. So there's just a lot to learn for me when I'm watching tournaments, especially like a major like the British Open.
Yeah, I one of the things that is really remarkable about Scotty, of course, he's got all the physical, the skill stuff, but you even heard it in that interview that kind of went pretty viral before the championship. He's basically like, golf does not fulfill me. My family fulfills me, and you can kind of tell that a little bit when he's out on the course. Like he doesn't seem as affected. It doesn't seem to be taking it. I don't want to say taking it as seriously because of course he's taking it seriously, but it doesn't. He doesn't get frustrated easily, that kind of thing. And so, any reflections on that, Henry? Just like when you watch him play, how does the mental of what he's doing stand out to you?
I mean, it's kind of incredible how grounded he is as a golfer. Um, we've never really seen something like that from a number one golfer in the world, at least in my lifetime since I've been watching golf. We had Tiger, who like was just a complete animal when it came to like locking in for golf. Like, I mean, it's gone viral a couple of times, but like his schedule growing up was wake up at 6 a.m., go to the range, eat breakfast, go play 18, eat lunch, play 18, eat dinner, go back to the range. It's like that was his goal, was just like winning golf tournaments. And now with Scotty, it's like totally different. He's, like you mentioned, he's recognizes that there are things more important than golf in his life, like his family, and golf is second. And he just happens to be really, really good at the thing that is second most important in his life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Kyle. Any major takeaways just overall from the weekend? It was like an uninteresting tournament almost, and so any what'd you take away?
Sure. Yeah, I think before I get to my takeaways from the tournament, I wanted to you mentioned Scotty's pre-match, like the interview he had that was sort of going viral, and I thought maybe if I don't know if I'm exactly remembering the quote correctly, but he was mentioning kind of like what's the point of like going out there and playing and winning the tournament. Like it's crazy to hear like the guy that's at the top of the sport talking like that. Um, like I think there's drawing a lot of comparisons between Scotty and now people are like, people just love to compare everyone to Tiger if you're a good golfer. And so it feels like there's a lot of those comparisons coming out. And then I start thinking about Tiger, and then it makes me think of other athletes like Tiger Woods. You think of like maybe Tom Brady, people that are at the top of their game that have like that win or die attitude. Michael Jordan is another one that comes to mind. All these guys have like the same mentality, and Scotty is performing at that level for the last couple of years, but doesn't he has almost a completely stark he's a complete stark contrast in terms of the way he plays the game and the way he's mentally prepared for the game. And it's cool for me to see that work because I think there's tons of guys that have that mentality of like, I go to work, I go do my job. It happens to be playing a professional sport. And then I go back to my family and my real life. And those guys you don't usually hear about at the top of their game for very long. But Scotty's still there. He's dominant. And most importantly, he doesn't falter. in the moment. It's almost like it's a superpower for him, having that ability to be almost impervious to, I don't know. I don't want to say he doesn't care. Obviously, of course, he cares. He wants to win the tournament so badly. But I think of like Rory in the Masters more recently, and you could tell, like, that final day, it meant too much to him. It almost felt like it was like, I need to win this. And then he hits bad shots. He's missing 5-foot putts, and you see Scottie. He didn't miss a single one of those 5-foot putts. Like the whole final day, there was a lot of points where I was like watching and I'd be like, oh man, like this might be a little bit interesting. Let's see what happens. And he would somehow get out of it. He'd make the putt and that would be it. There was like, I think one point, I can't remember exactly where it was in the tournament, but he had a bogey and he followed it up immediately with a birdie. And that just kind of felt like the story of the tournament. It was boring golf to watch. And compared to someone like Tiger, you watch Tiger Woods win a tournament and it usually felt exciting. Even if he would win by 7 strokes, he was more ecstatic, more exciting while he was playing. And so with that, although you'd ask me my major takeaways, and maybe this is my major takeaway, is that Scottie's a bit of a boring winner. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, good for him. He's a winner.
No, absolutely. I was reminded of the 2024 Boston Celtics, and they were just kind of a boring NBA champion. They did most things right, and they took the right shots, and they made the right shots, and they fairly cruised to the championship. And it felt it reminded me a little bit of that, of just like, hey, go out there, you know the things you're supposed to do, and then you do them better than everybody else. And to your point about it being boring, I was curious, and Scottie, he is boring for sure. Like I think that's a fair way to describe his game, but he's also fairly popular. Like it feels like everybody tunes in to watch him, or at least knows about him, that kind of thing. He's not one of those personality-less people. Maybe this. I'm also thinking about like the whole mugshot thing from last year's U.S. Open and all that. But this was the most popular or most viewed British Open since 2022, and was like 20% more viewed than last year. And so even though the storyline was really just like, oh, Scottie Scheffler feels inevitable. So why do you, if you had to, put a reason to it, why do you think that would be, Henry? Like what were people tuning into? What were they resonating with?
Well, I think for one thing, golf has just kind of grown in the last couple of years and continues to do so. So I'm positive that plays a factor, at least somewhat. And then I also think that Scottie is just like the biggest, maybe second biggest name behind Rory right now in golf. But there's obviously an argument for him to be number one. So when you have someone like that winning a tournament, even if it's like kind of expected or like feels boring because he's winning by so much, when it is the most popular person winning, people are more inclined to tune in if it's a name they recognize or if it's a face that they've seen win before.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I'd consider myself a fairly casual fan of golf, and it's nice to tune in and know the names and know what are these big storylines I'm tuning in for. Yeah, was curious. Probably enough Scottie talk. He was amazing. His round 2 was scorching, and all 4 rounds of his were fairly blemish free. So he was a champion. Who else kind of impressed you or unimpressed you guys?
First person that comes to mind for impressed me it's got to be Ricky Fowler. I've been a Ricky fan for over a decade now, and the last few years have been pretty tough overall, especially in majors. But sneaking into a top 15 with, what was it, a 65 on Sunday, I think. I mean, I was ecstatic to see that. I mean, Ricky winning a major is like one of my number one like things I want to watch in golf, and we're kind of running out of time for any sort of window of that being a possibility. So seeing him kind of work his way up the leaderboard in a major was pretty fun for me.
Why are you a Ricky fan? Like how'd you get drawn to that?
Outfit, the pants.
There's so many reasons. Yeah. When I was
Other than
younger,
that.
when I was 11 or 12, the outfits were like really cool to me. And I had one of his like Puma hats. I had one of the neon green. I wore it for every single tournament I played for like 2 years growing up. It was just like one of my prized possessions. And so that kind of was like the original thing that put me on. And then the more I watched him, he has a lot of swagger on the course, but it's like a very suave swagger. Like you don't see him get too high, you don't see him get too low. He hits a really good shot, his face stays the same. He hits a really bad shot, his face stays the same. It's it's cool to see, but it's also kind of inspiring to see as someone who plays competitive golf. Like, okay, if he can handle his nerves that well on a PGA Tour, I can handle my nerves that well in my local amateur tournament that I'm playing.
Love it. Kyle, who stood out to you?
Yeah, that's a cool one. It's cool hearing Henry talk about, like, I don't know, coming from more of a golf background is interesting. Like when I watch Ricky Fowler, I think he's cool for different reasons, and I like watching him for different reasons. But yeah, my guy from this tournament that impressed me the most is definitely it's Harris English for sure. I thought, especially so he got second at the PGA Championship as well, and then solo second here at the Open. And I guess for me, what's cool is like you hear about a guy, he's an American, and he's a great golfer. He finished second twice in that last two majors, and then he's just not a guy that you think of. He's not a guy that comes to the top of your head. I think about like, okay, if I go have a conversation with my mom about golf, she knows about Scottie Scheffler, she knows about Ricky Fowler. She doesn't know about Harris English, and he just got second at two of the biggest tournaments in the sport. And so he's just like an underrated guy. I think he's humble. I like the way he plays. I like his game. And yeah, he had a great tournament, an awesome finish.
Yeah, I have a cool connection to Harris. When I was living in Ohio, I caddied at Muirfield, and before at one of the pro-ams before the Memorial, I caddied with Harris English for a round, and I can attest he's a really cool, really humble guy, really sweet. And yeah, like you said, I mean, if Scottie Scheffler didn't exist, he'd be a two-time major champ right now. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah, Scotty just decided to not show up for some reason. Which, you never know. You never know. You got to play your best golf while you're out there. I would have thought it would have been a little bit funny if Harris English had won, and his last, he's obviously, like you said, Kyle, an American, and his last name is English. If someone named English would have won the British Open, I think it's been a pretty long time since someone from the British Isles has actually won the British Open. So I just thought that would have been a little bit of wry irony there. I was pretty impressed by Wyndham Clark. He made headlines after the whole situation at Oakmont, which it's kind of clear he doesn't really want to comment on, you destroying the locker and all that, and being banned from the premises, and then had a truly horrendous round one. Like, of the golfers who ended up making it to the final day, I think probably the only golfer who had a worse round one was Bryson DeChambeau. He shot like 3 over or something like that. And then his next 3 rounds, he fully rebounded. I think he shot 10 strokes better on day 2, and then I think kept that pretty consistent. Like significantly under par. I think it was 5 under par the next few rounds, and ended up finishing T4. So pulled out a pretty good finish after a rough, if you had just like frozen time after the Oakmont situation and then round 1 of this tournament, you'd be like, Wyndham Clark is having just the worst year. And then he was able to rebound and finished top 4, got some money out of it. Probably that did force him to answer some questions at more press conferences than he wanted to, about the locker destruction. But I was still impressed with that. It's hard to come back from a really terrible round 1.
Yeah, something I want to mention before we go into players that kind of disappointed us is all 3 of us have said American players that finished in the top 15, and not bashing us, but it's something to note that typically the Open Championship is a tournament where European, especially like UK, Great Britain players tend to do well just because they're more familiar with that style of course. This year we saw 9 of the top 15 be Americans, which is almost unheard of at the Open Championship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was rooting for Rory, especially because it was like purely his home turf, Northern Ireland and all. Wasn't able to put it together though. But he did have that cool clip where he like hit into the grass and then it opened and then like another ball popped out. Did you guys see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That was crazy. I don't know if we'll ever see that happen again. That was like a once in a lifetime thing. Anyway, who else stood out to you guys maybe in a negative way?
For me, it's got to be Colin. Colin Morikawa missed the cut. He was +7 or +8 or something like that for the first 2 rounds. Missed the cut by a pretty wide margin, And I'm a big Colin fan. He's a former winner of the Open Championship. He's had a lot of success at this specific tournament, and just
Yeah.
wasn't there. It didn't really add up to me. Like it's a course and a tournament that suits his style of play. Like he just keeps it in play off the tee, hits really sharp irons, and makes short putts. Makes the putts you need to make, which is kind of the recipe for success at the Open. And he
Yeah.
just didn't have his game. And he's had some kind of troubles with caddies this year. I think he's on like his third caddy of the season now. So I do wonder if there's something mental going on where he just isn't like super confident with either with his caddy or with his own game, with his own swing right now. But I'm really hoping he turns it around quick.
What does it feel like when you're not confident on your swing? Like, have you ever gone through like a slump like that, or the yips or anything like that in your golf life?
My gosh, it's hell. I was on the range this evening, and like I was practicing like 40 to 60 yard wedge shots, and I like couldn't dial it in. I had like 8 or 10 shots in a row that were just way off the yardage I was aiming at, and like the word yips came into my mind, and it's like immediately you have to like block that out, because as soon as the word yips gets into your mind, it's just downhill from there. So I had to like reset and like take a few breaths, because like I said, the second like you get into that kind of motion where it's like, oh, like last shot wasn't good, this shot's not going to be good either. It's a real snowball effect, and it takes a lot of mental fortitude to get out of that cycle.
Yeah, you start overcorrecting and then undercorrecting, and then there's no correcting, and everything's wrong. And yeah.
It's mental hell.
Kyle, who are you disappointed with at the Open Championship?
Yeah, gosh, I'm going back and forth on who I really want to talk about. Gosh, it feels wrong, but I think my loser of the tournament is going to be Bryson DeChambeau.
Sure.
I mean, he shot the hot round on Sunday, and I think seeing him like tear the course up, which I've prefaced this, I'm not like the biggest Bryson fan in the world as far as like player goes, but at the end of the day, like I like seeing anybody shoot a good round, and I think it was cool to see him play that well in the final round and make like a real run. And it just is a shame that he didn't have it like that for the rest of the tournament, because I think I would have just loved to see more of a battle near the end there, I guess I'll say. And I think he had the ability to do it, and he was playing great golf Sunday. It's just a shame that we didn't see it the rest of the week, because I think, yeah, that was really all I was looking for the whole tournament. I know the broadcasters were saying it, basically like, man, it'd be such a cool, like exciting tournament if Scottie wasn't in the tournament. Like there was a minute there, like going into the back nine where there was, 5 or 6 guys that were right at 10 or 9 or 10 under. And, you had no idea where it was going to go. But then it's like, oh, but that's not including, I mean, the tournament's already over. So yeah.
No, I think it's absolutely my personal conspiracy theory that I have no backing for, is that because this isn't the first time that we've seen, and this is going to be confirmation bias because I'm sure there are plenty of examples, like even at the Masters this year, where it was the opposite. But this isn't the first time we've seen Bryson have a bad round one and then figure it out the next few days. My personal theory is that he must be like flying in late or something. Maybe he's doing like YouTube shoots. He's focusing too much on like his YouTube channel on like a Wednesday or something. He's not like getting himself ready. And then he's just not locked in for round one. Especially when you have someone like Scottie who's just like, hey, he's just got a few priorities. Like maybe Bryson's spread himself too thin and he can't compete in the same way. Obviously he's still very competitive, and I'm mostly tongue in cheek, but it is funny to think about.
Like I got to hit one more ball over my house, and this one's gonna be the one that goes in, and then we can go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, he's screwing up his swing. He's really focusing on just chipping it over the house. He's not getting he's not actually playing good golf swings.
Maybe he'll do well at St. Andrews, where you actually have to hit it over a house on the 18th hole.
He's back at home. Yeah, there was a bunch of people a bunch of big names who didn't make the cut, which were disappointing. Patrick Reed didn't make the cut. Koepka didn't make the cut. Cantlay didn't make the cut. Like some of some of them more surprising, some of them less surprising. But a lot of guys who have been chasing majors for a long time, and whether it's Patrick Reed obviously has majors under his belt, or like they've proven their ability to win, and whether it is this tournament that we're disappointed with, or if you want to like extend the lens a little bit further and just be like, we've been disappointed with some of these guys for, a few years now. It's just disappointing whenever a name that has serious name recognition that people would probably tune in to see, and then they're not even playing on Saturday or Sunday. Yeah. And that's just part of golf. And sometimes that can happen and you don't even realize it. Like if you had just tuned in for Saturday or Sunday, you might have just been like, oh, you might have just like forgot that Patrick Reed was at the tournament, or assumed he didn't go, or assumed he was doing live stuff or whatever it was. But so it's, maybe an unfortunate consequence of the whole cut system. But yeah, I think it's at least worth mentioning, these guys who would reasonably have a lot higher expectations.
On that note, it reminded me of one other player that I wanted to mention that kind of had that sort of feeling for me, that it's a big name and you kind of thought that maybe they would have their day. For me, it was Tommy Fleetwood. I really felt like this was going to be his tournament. He's one of those British golfers that you're talking about, that you mentioned, like, man, this would be a tournament where he would shine. It looked like he'd been playing some good golf. And then just came out really slow in the first round. I think it was over par. And then better throughout the rest of the weekend. And honestly was in the running there for a minute on Sunday, but was just, too far behind to start the day. And so he couldn't really keep up. But I mean, shot a 67 in round 4. But another one of those guys, it's a big name and you kind of just expected them to maybe have a better showing. Same with John Rahm, who I feel like hasn't really showed up at the majors this year. And yet people talk about him and they're like, oh yeah, like Rahm's gonna, he's always in the top 5. He's always like, oh yeah, he's gonna probably like the best odds to be in the top 5 or top 10, but he's not playing great. I never hardly heard him mentioned it at all this weekend.
Yeah, he's still riding the high of, I think it was the U.S. Open 2024, if not mistaken, the last one that he won. No? What am I
U.S.
thinking
Open
of?
2024 was Bryson. He won the Masters in 2023, and he won the U.S. Open in 2021.
Okay. I'm thinking Masters 2023. Yeah, I'm thinking Masters 2023. He's still riding that high. That's why his odds are still up there. I think the last kind of factor of the weekend, weather was definitely a factor. I mean, you expect that when you're in Britain. We got a little bit of that nice British weather, rainy at times, cleared up at times. Henry, what's your experience with like playing in inclement weather? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you feel like you do better? Do you feel like you do better relative? Do you think you do worse relative to your competitors? What's your experience there?
As much as I would like to say I'm someone who can like elevate my game in poor weather and in rain, I am just not. I don't know what it is. I come prepared for rain. Like I would keep my rain gloves in my bag at all times. I'll bring a raincoat, windbreaker, rain pants, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And
I didn't even know rain pants were on the table.
Oh yeah, FootJoy rain pants. They're great. You can get them at Dick's Sporting Goods. But I can bring all the equipment, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's like a mental thing, or if I just feel like I have to like change my swing, or like change how I'm hitting the ball when it's raining or when it's cold. I've never been great at that. But when the weather's good, I feel like that's when I can elevate my game, which is probably not the best thing to say as a competitive golfer.
Love it. Alrighty, well, thanks both, especially Henry. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us and sharing some of your insights. Was an interesting tournament. Yet another Scottie win. He's getting closer to that Grand Slam, and we'll probably see it sooner rather than later. But yeah, thanks guys for the time.